Hello. Before I begin this story, if you are listening in the middle of the night, make sure your windows and doors are locked, because what I am about to tell you might make you feel as if someone is standing out there in the dark, watching you. And if you like scary stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next scary thing. Chapter 1: Darkness on the Highway. The night in Alaska is unlike any other. It is not simply darkness, it is an entity. It is thick, heavy, a blanket of black that covers everything. Whenever I step outside my small guard post, I feel as if I am walking straight into an endless abyss. I work the night shift on a stretch of highway through the wilderness. There's nothing special about my job. Sit in a lookout, report traffic, occasionally drive patrols. They joke that the only companions on the night shift in Alaska are the snow and the dark. But I know better than anyone that sometimes there's something else watching. That night the wind howled, blowing the snow in a blinding haze. The yellow light from my duty station was only enough to illuminate a small area, while outside, the darkness seemed to swallow the whole world. I sat, sipping my cold coffee, listening to the long ticking of the wall clock as if counting my own breaths. Around midnight, I decided to go for a drive. The highway was so quiet that I sometimes wondered if I was the only person awake for hundreds of miles. The sound of the tires grinding against the ice was eerie, like the crunching of bones. Then I saw it. An unfamiliar light flickered in my rearview mirror. At first I thought it was an illusion, but then it became clearer. Two pale yellow dots moving rhythmically, following me. A large black truck was approaching. No license plate, no turn signals. It was a hulking mass of metal, hurtling through the night. My heart was pounding. No one drove at night in this area. The truck was getting closer, its headlights shining brightly in my mirrors, forcing me to squint. I turned right, intending to let it pass. But the truck didn't pass. It just followed closely behind, as if forcing me to keep going. A feeling of unease spread throughout my body. I tried to look through the side mirror, and for a brief moment I saw the truck cab. There was a man sitting there, his face hidden in the darkness, but his eyes were glowing like two pale flames staring straight at me. I almost suffocated. I stepped on the gas, my car screeched and went faster. The icy, slippery road made the steering wheel vibrate, but the truck stayed close, silent. No honking, no overtaking, just watching. Then suddenly, it turned off the lights. The darkness swallowed everything in an instant. I jumped, my heart racing, my eyes searching. But the truck was gone. No lights, no engine, no trace of its existence. I stopped the car, rolled down the window, and listened. The wind howled. The snow rustled. The forest creaked in the distance. But there was no engine, no tires grinding on ice. I tried to calm myself, telling myself that I was probably hallucinating from fatigue. But as I started the car to head back to the checkpoint, I realized my hands were still shaking on the wheel. When I got home, I sat motionless for a long time, staring out the window. There was no radio report that night. There was no evidence that anyone had driven across that stretch of road. Just me, the darkness, and the memory of glowing eyes in the black truck cab. Chapter 2: Cracks in the Night. I don't know how long I slept, but when I opened my eyes, darkness had settled outside the tower. The forest was shrouded in a thin mist, save for the red glow of the beacon on the roof, which flickered like a giant heartbeat. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional hoarse cry of an owl. I glanced out the window, trying to find some reassurance in the familiarity of the forest. Instead, I noticed something unusual. Along the path leading to the highway, a faint light was moving. Not the usual light of a car. It was too faint, too white, like phosphorescence. It didn't flicker, didn't cast shadows on the trees, but simply moved, close to the ground, like something crawling. A chill ran down my spine. I blinked a few times, thinking I was hallucinating because I had just woken up. But the light was still there, inching forward, then stopping motionless right at the edge of the forest. I quickly turned on my flashlight, pointed the light in its direction, but immediately, nothing. Empty. The path was dark again. I stood still for a few minutes, my heart pounding, then convinced myself that it was probably just a reflection of the animal's eyes. Alaska was full of deer, wolves, even bears, and they could appear at any moment. I took a deep breath, closed my notebook, and tried to get back to bed. But the image of the light was still clear in my mind. Around midnight, I was startled again by the sound of a car engine. Looking down from above, I saw a black truck parked right on the trail leading into the forest, a few hundred meters from the tower. The car was stationary, the lights off, no sign of anyone getting out. I strained my eyes, but the windows were so dark that I could see nothing inside. During training sessions, they had said, "If you see a strange vehicle stopping near the tower area, observe and report. Never approach without permission." I remembered every word, but the situation made my heart troubled. Who would drive here in the middle of the night? This road was remote and was only used for maintenance. Time passed slowly. I looked at my watch, 12:47. The car was still. I began to feel as if there were eyes staring straight at me. The windows were dark, but the feeling was so clear it made my skin crawl. I decided to turn on the high beams, shining them straight down the road. For a moment, white light filled the road, but the car was gone, empty. Nothing but a patch of gravel. Nothing. Chapter 3. The Road of No Return. The road leading out of the forest seemed to lead me to safety, but the more I drove, the more I realized that the silence was not a relief, but a thick curtain that covered the world around me. The headlights of the car shone on the cold asphalt, and the sky above was only thin clouds with silver moonlight. The engine hummed steadily, but I no longer felt in control. Every meter that passed, I felt like I was being watched. And then, in the rearview mirror, I saw it. The black truck. No headlights, no license plate, just a solid black mass rolling in the darkness. The distance between me and it did not change, whether I accelerated or slowed down. It was as if it did not need to obey the rules of speed, just needed to stick to me. I turned on the radio to drown out the pounding of my heart. But instead of the familiar channel, the car speakers hissed, and a hoarse voice interrupted, "Where are you going? This road leads nowhere." I slammed down on the radio, sweat beaded on my forehead. My heart was pounding so hard my chest felt like it was going to explode. This is just a mind trick, I told myself. It can't be real. But the voice came again, not over the radio this time, but inside my head, heavy, slippery, and sickly sweet. The streetlights flickered on and off as my car passed. It was as if they had been turned off just to block my view of the road ahead. In the moment of total darkness, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder from the back seat. I spun around, but the back seat was empty. The truck drew closer. I could hear its tires grinding against the pavement, but strangely, there was no light reflecting from its headlights. It was like it was a void, a shape that did not belong to this world. I forced myself to focus on the road. But the further I walked, the more the scenery repeated itself. The same trees, the same signs, even the cracks in the pavement repeated themselves like a movie on reverse. I suddenly understood. I wasn't really leaving. I was just running around in a giant cage of darkness. And then up ahead, the silhouette of a man appeared in the middle of the road. No face. Just a tall, thin figure with drooping shoulders standing still, facing me. I hit the brakes. The car skidded, the wheels screeching against the asphalt. But when it stopped, the man was gone. There was only a suffocating black void. The truck was gone. I took a deep breath, hoping that I had made it. But as soon as I looked up, I saw through the windshield. The figure sitting on the hood, his face close to mine, his eyes empty like bottomless pits. He smiled, and the smile did not extend from his lips, but from his cheeks, stretching all the way to his ears. I screamed and stepped on the gas. The car shot forward, but his image remained there like a ghostly reflection. I drove like crazy, my heart pounding, until I realized that the road ahead had turned into a vast black hole. There was no pavement, no trees, nothing but endless darkness. I slammed on the brakes. The car stopped at the edge of the dark abyss. Behind me, the black truck stopped. Its door opened, making a creaking sound like a coffin being opened. A whisper sounded not far away this time, but right in my ear. "You've driven far enough. Get off." I don't remember what I did next. My memory is fragmented, leaving only fragments. The dim light of the moon, the sound of the wind howling through the crack, and the feeling of being pulled downward. When I woke up, I was sitting in my car, the engine off, the keys still in the ignition. Outside the window, the woods were silent as if nothing had happened. There was no truck, no people, just vast, cold Alaska and the endless road ahead. I wanted to believe that everything was just an illusion caused by loneliness and exhaustion. But every night after that, as I drove through the deserted roads, I would see the black truck silently following me, always keeping the right distance, never disappearing. Perhaps I have left that forest, but the forest never left me. That night, the Alaska road suddenly seemed to swallow me up in a space that did not belong to this world. The wind howled, the trees on both sides of the road swayed, the branches and leaves whipped against each other, making a dry sound, like the sound of broken bones. I shivered, gripping the steering wheel even tighter. But the faster I tried to drive to escape that dense darkness, the more endless the road seemed. The headlights of the black truck flashed again from the rearview mirror. This time it was no longer as far away as before, but only a few dozen meters away from me. The light was not normal. It was too bright, too white, like the light of something inhuman. I saw the moment the light swept across the mirror. My eyes were dazzled, but at the same time the shadow of an unfamiliar face appeared right on the back seat of my own car. I spun around. No one was there. The back seat was empty. There was only the sound of my heart pounding in my chest, pounding like it was about to burst. Suddenly the car radio turned on. I hadn't touched it. A voice crackled, at first like static, then gradually became clear words. "You shouldn't have left the watchtower. You saw something you shouldn't have seen." The voice seemed to come from both the radio and the depths of my head, echoing, heavy and cold enough to freeze my blood. I quickly slammed my hand down to turn the radio off, but the voice continued to play, as if the car was no longer mine. Up ahead, the road splits into two. I don't remember where it branched on the map. One branch leads downhill into a thick fog. The other branch plunges into the pitch-black forest. I choose the downhill direction at random, hoping it will lead to some kind of settlement. But as I turn the corner, I realize that the road is so narrow that it can barely fit a wheel through, with deep ravines on either side. The truck's headlights flooded in again. I heard the engine roar, as if it were about to plow straight into my car. "Don't turn around." A vague whisper sounded right next to my ear. But at that moment, my instinct made me look at the rearview mirror. And I saw a pale face, eyeless, mouthless, pressed against the back window of my car, staring at me with a terrifying emptiness. I screamed, swerved, and almost fell off the cliff. The tires screeched as they crunched on the gravel. The truck behind me also accelerated, coming closer, its headlights shining straight into the rearview mirror, making me dizzy. In a panic, I stepped on the gas, but to no avail. It seemed that all the laws of speed and distance had been bent. It was always there, right behind me. No further, no closer, just following, like a nightmare that would not let go. Then suddenly, the truck was gone. Completely. No more lights, no more engine noise, just the sound of the wind howling through the canyon. I thought I was safe, but just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a flash of light appeared ahead. The black truck was now blocked in the middle of the road, turned and headed straight for me. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeched, my entire body lurched forward. My heart stopped, but when I looked up, the truck was empty. The cabin was dark, no one was driving, and strangely enough, its wheels didn't touch the ground. It hovered a few centimeters above the road, vibrating like a giant steel ghost. In that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer running on a real road, but had lost myself in a space torn from the night. Footsteps sounded behind me, clear, slow, as if someone was deliberately trying to keep the distance. I turned around. No one, just the dim streetlights, the electric poles tilted toward me. My own shadow stretched unnaturally long, so long that I was no longer sure it was mine. In the distance, I saw the crack again. This time, it was no longer small or fragile, but widened like a real gap in the road. From it emanated a dull, ashen blue light accompanied by a faint whisper, Turn back. Turn back. But I knew that if I turned back, there would be no way out. I stepped closer and recognized the faces in the light, faces that were identical to those I had seen in town. The taxi driver, the innkeeper, the woman who had handed me the crumpled map. They all looked at me, their mouths moving, but no one spoke. There was only a steady tapping sound like fingernails scraping against glass. I stepped back, my heart pounding, but behind me a hoarse voice rang out right next to my ear. "Do you think you can get out of here?" I turned around quickly, but only saw a row of streetlights go out at the same time, darkness engulfing every space. The road behind me disappeared, leaving only a thick darkness. I was forced to move forward, and then, from the crack, a bony hand reached out, trembling but sure. It didn't pull me, just touched my wrist, cold to the bone. In that moment, I saw before my eyes a series of flickering images. I walked into town, I talked, I got lost. But all of these scenes took place in the dark, where I didn't say a word, didn't move. It was like there was another me living instead. The light from the crack flared one last time, consuming my vision. When I blinked again, I found myself standing at the familiar crossroads just before the town gates. It was morning. Birds were singing on the rooftops. Cars were moving about as usual. Everything seemed to be back to normal. But when I looked down, I saw a purple handprint on my wrist. And right in the middle of my palm, there was a thin crack, like a thread. Slowly spreading. I clenched my fist, hid it in my pocket, tried to act normal, but deep down I knew. The journey I had just traveled was not over. It only began within me. The wind blew through the broken windows, carrying with it a chill, as if the whole building had become a living entity, whispering in the language of silence. The narrator turned his head to take one last look at the hallway, where the crack still ran deep, where the darkness seemed not only to surround, but also to swallow up all light. No one knew what lay beyond, and perhaps no one ever should. Marcus disappeared as if he had never existed, leaving only a faint stench of rust in the air. David stood frozen, his eyes hollow as a cracked mirror reflecting a fear that belonged to no one. The narrator wanted to walk away, to leave everything, but each step felt heavy as if pinned to the cold ground. In their heads, the question still echoed. Are we really out, or are we just going deeper into the dead end? The corridor slowly closed behind him, like an invisible door that automatically locked itself, leaving behind the endless void of night. And there, where the darkness reached, something still seemed to be waiting, nameless, shapeless, but absolutely present. If you're listening, take a look around the room you're sitting in. Is there a crack in the wall? A dark spot in the corner where the light doesn't reach? Don't stare too long and don't listen too hard, because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what you see. It's what's waiting patiently for you in silence. If you want to continue walking with me through other scary stories, please subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell. I promise to take you deeper into places where light has never reached.